You've been listening to President Trump, who appeared via live stream at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. And back with us to break down what we just heard, NBC's Kelly O'Donnell and Christine Roman. So, Christine, first, a lot there.
Yeah.
Any obvious fact checks we need to get out of the way?
Well, he's talking a lot about inflation in the United States. And just a fact check there, inflation was much higher in the 80s when Donald Trump was in his 30s. That was 14% inflation. We're back down to 2.9%. But the sting of inflation is one of the things that really got him into office. And he's pledging that his policies will lower inflation. He's asking OPEC to start pumping more oil to lower gas prices. He said oil prices. That would end the war in Ukraine. That would lower prices of just about everything. So you're hearing the president talk about his plans on a global stage. Also, he would like to cut, corporate taxes in the U.S. all the way down to 15% and saying to these countries and these companies, hey, make your stuff here and you won't have tariffs, you'll have a really low tax rate. Otherwise, we're going to fight back.
I mean, on the issue of those comments about asking Saudi Arabia and OPEC to pump more oil or saying he will demand interest rates drop globally, does he have the kind of power to make all of that happen?
No. And next week, the Federal Reserve of the United States meets, and it's mostly expected to not lower interest rates because inflation is still too high in the U.S. So there is a potential conflict budding between the Fed and the presidency. But you're right. You heard the president say he will bring down inflation. He will have OPEC. He will ask OPEC to start pumping more oil to lower oil prices. And he wants the Fed to lower interest rates and the rest of the world to follow with lower interest rates as well. These central banks are independent. They are made to be independent away from politics and the vicissitudes of who is in and who is out of office so that they're just looking at the economics. So we'll see what that fight could be in the days ahead.
Do any of his executive orders at this point bring down inflation?
He's got a memorandum of understanding that asks for all the levers of government to focus on lowering costs for consumers. But it doesn't order trucking companies or a grocery store or anything in the pipeline to lower prices. It's mostly, I guess, symbolic, setting the stage that this is a priority in the government.
And Kelly, he really seemed to throw the kitchen sink into his opening comments and throughout, really. He brought up the action on the southern border. He talked about transgender rights, which, again, we should do a quick fact check because he said transgender operations, which have become the rage, will occur very rarely. They're not the rage. We're talking a very, very small group of gender-affirming operations that are taking place every year. But why bring all of that up at this forum? What was he trying to accomplish here?
Well, this is very typical for President Trump, where he uses the bully pulpit and a megaphone and makes it an opportunity to talk about all the things that he thinks are important in terms of policy and culture and the things that he thinks got him elected and give him the base of support that he enjoys, especially in these early days. A lot of those issues have nothing to do with the group that is convened in Davos, the results of the election that he went into, that's not relevant to them today. So some of this is just the style that Donald Trump brings to his world stage moment. Notably, he talked about wanting to meet with Vladimir Putin right away. That is a stark and important statement because Vladimir Putin has been exiled in the world community. He is not at the major meetings of world leaders. He is not speaking by phone to many of the world leaders because of his war in Ukraine. And so to reach a point where he would get parity with a U.S. president in a meeting, something that Putin would want very much, is a very notable thing. Perhaps it is the best way for President Trump to use the influence he would have to bring about an end to that war. If he chooses to have that kind of a meeting, and soon, as he described it, that's very notable. He talked about his relationship with President Xi of China. That is critical for the competition and the global positioning of the U.S. and China, especially when you consider that China has an ability to show aggression to places like Taiwan. So many of these things are about projecting his influence, trying to get leaders to capitulate, to go along, to see his point of view, that whole range of things. He throws a lot at it, hoping he can get some concessions or some negotiations that benefit him and the United States.
Kelly O'Donnell and Christine Romans, thank you, ladies.